Jacinta, you can go ahead. Thanks.
Right. Good afternoon, law students and the ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, our colleagues at Weber Wenzel. It's a great honor to be having you here with us this afternoon. I think our students are in for a very fruitful and educational session with you today. We are thankful also for this opportunity to be hosting the Weber Wenzel CV writing and interview skills session. To our students, just to say to you that this is really what we would call our preliminary session to our Law Professions Day, which is happening over the 2nd and 3rd of March. On the 2nd and 3rd of March, we will be having Law Professions Day. And also to keep a lookout on our Facebook page and the law school's media communications with regards to the details for that. Because we want to highlight that on the 2 days, you will not necessarily be seeing the same law firms over the 2nd and the 3rd. Each day will have a selection of law firms that will be presenting to you the relevant criteria that they would be speaking to you about over that period. So it would be really good that you engage and connect online over the 2nd and the 3rd of March. So to get started for today, I'm going to welcome Ms. Suri, sorry, I'm saying your name incorrectly, Ms. Mudli, Siuri Mudli, who is our coordinator at the Human Resources Department at Weber Wenzel. Students, I just want to highlight to you right now is that can you take lots of notes, because I think this is a very important session for you, especially those of you that are in your first year of law school. We are encouraging in the Q&A box. And also I will then assist Siyuri with those questions a little later. She won't necessarily address them straight away because I think it is vital that you get through the presentation so that you can also clarify certain components towards the end. So write your questions in the Q&A box, and then we will be able to assist you later on at the end of the presentation. Siyuri, over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jacinta. Hi, everyone. So I'm Siri. I'm part of the graduate recruitment team at Weber Wenzel. And I've got Reshma with me. Reshma is the managing director of Jack Beanstalk Consulting, and she's currently consulting for the firm as part of the graduate recruitment team. Reshma comes with years and years of experience in the legal industry, specifically in graduate recruitment. So we hope that we'll be able to impart some of our knowledge over the years to you.
Hello, everybody. It's so nice to chat to you. Siri and I were just talking about it. So as mentioned by Jacinta and Siri heads up graduate recruitment at Weber Wenzel. And I joined as a consultant to the firm in November, and we are very excited to be talking to you about this topic, CV writing and interview skills. I've been in recruitment for probably over, I don't want to give my age away, but a very, very, very long time. And I've seen lots and lots of CVs, and I've attended lots and lots of interviews. And today we really want to share with you some of the do's and don'ts for your CV in preparing for your future career as a lawyer or in law, whichever, direction you will go in. Should we get started?
Yeah, I'm going to just share my screen, so if everyone can just, Hazel, if you can just let me know once you can see.
Guys, we're hoping to have a very interactive session. So if you want to stop us in the middle of anything whatsoever, just say stop, and you're welcome to ask questions in the middle of the presentation.
Yes, we can see the presentation, Siri. You can start from your first slide.
Okay, thanks, Hazel.
We'll bring it closer so I can see. Okay. So there's 3 parts to our presentation. One of them is how to present your CV. The second one is how to prepare for and manage yourself in the interview. And the third one, which is the most exciting and the hardest one to figure out for everybody, is what on earth do the law firms want when they're recruiting candidate attorneys for articles? So to take you through how to prepare a CV. When we say how to apply, the law firms all have their different sort of systems going. And it's very important that you apply on the method that they specify. If they say apply on our website, then you apply on the website. Some of them will have a structured form that you complete. Some of them will have a link to attach your CV. The most frustrating thing for recruiters, and remember, recruiters see up to 2,000 applications, 2,000 to 2,500 applications in a year. And the most frustrating thing for them is when they receive your application and they've said to you, upload your CV and upload all your supporting documents. If you don't include all your information, and I know sometimes you're a little bit hesitant to do so because your marks might not be the greatest, but we'll deal with how to deal with those kind of things. Make sure you attach all the documents that they're looking for, because by the time they write to you or have capacity to get back to you to say the following information is outstanding, probably about 50 or so of your colleagues have already submitted the information in the correct format, and the number, there's only limited spaces, and so spaces fill up quickly. So you want to do the right thing up front. The second thing we want to deal with is the look and feel of your CV. We still find that we are seeing CVs that are drawn up in an old-fashioned Word document with a border around it, and then the front page is your name in the hugest font that you could find. Guys, we're not going to, later on we'll take you through what a good CV looks like, but there are hundreds of really, really amazing examples, CV examples or CV templates on Google. So just Google them on, I think it's the Microsoft, it's part of the Microsoft package. You'll find a number of examples that you could use from there. And we say to you, please, please, please go and look at them and submit the most modern looking CV that you can find.
I'm sorry to disturb you there, Rishna. Would you please just close your slide, your notes, so that we can just see the presentation only? Thanks.
Okay, just give me.
Now you saw all my untidy notes. That was a mistake on our part. Okay.
Okay, profile pictures. So I think it is something important to include on your CV. Somewhere in the corner, we will show you a template like Reshma said, but just make sure that you include a profile picture that's professional looking. And we've come across, believe it or not, CVs where people have taken like a selfie with either their boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife.
Wedding picture. Yeah.
You are putting your sort of, you are leaving a first impression. So just remember that as well, and just make sure that the profile picture that you're putting forward is something that you want your future employer to see.
So a nice picture is a picture, your graduation photo is a nice picture too. We're actually looking at one right now and it looks so good because it looks so professional. It's a graduation photo. You can put one of your graduation photos. Just make sure it's only you in that picture. You are sometimes very tempted to put the picture of yourself sitting in in a car and taking a selfie and, where the light is really good and, please don't put those kind of pictures. Put the most professional and simple picture of yourself up.
Yeah.
The length of your CV.
So we know that there are sometimes, you guys do tend to get mixed messages when it comes to the length of your CV. what we have always said to students is don't reduce your CV to 1 page just for the sake of keeping it short. I would rather get a CV that's 5 pages long and is actually sort of quality and good content on the CV, rather than getting a short CV that doesn't actually do justice to either your experience or your achievements and so on. So we do also sometimes see CVs come through with full academic results on there. And if you are attaching a copy of your transcript, which you have to for all of your applications, there's no reason to necessarily include all of your academic results on your CV, unless there's achievements you want to highlight.
Yeah, and you must be clever about this, guys. If your results are not the greatest, and we have asked you for your academic results in any event, you have to attach your academic results. But if you are, a student that graduated cum laude and your results stand out, and that's a selling point for you, you might want to put that out there up front, just so that people can pick it up just by scanning through your CV. So we're not saying omit information or unnecessarily. We're saying be clever about what you highlight about yourself. Put your strengths up front. Okay, structuring your CV for easy reading. We're going to show you, I don't know if we're going to show it to you now, but we want to show you what we thought was a very, very good example of a CV. What you want to do is in maybe the first page and the second page, and look guys, you're not going to have the longest CV in the world, because most of you, your work experience is limited to grad work experience. But it's nice to use the first page or two to sort of have all the information in summary, and then if you want to add more information, that comes in a more wordy format in page 3, 4, and 5. So let's show you an example. Is it easy to switch to? We're going to just switch to an example. Here we go. This is an example of a very well set out CV. You can see that the person here included up front a short personal bio. They highlighted what achievements they've had. Can we scroll down? The education is set out on the side. And they've elected to put in their academic results because their academic results happen to be particularly good. Okay. So can we do a small a zoom? Can we zoom so they can see what it looks like in minus? So this is kind of what it looks like at a screenshot level. You can see the colors that they've also used are very muted tones, and that's what you want to do in your CV. The red blocks aren't there on the CV itself. They're just there to show you where your information must go in. So these are the kinds of templates that we look forward to students using. Do you want to scroll down? Can you see this person was clever enough to separate their back work at law firms to the other work experience that they've done? But now you must do what's right for you. If you've only ever done back work and maybe worked at one other place, there's no point in having two separate blocks. You must just put it all into one block, maybe put the vacation work up front. What is very helpful to recruiters is to see a CV that's in chronological order with your latest experience at the top and the older bits of information at the bottom. And we don't want to see what achievements you had in primary school. Some people put that because they've got nothing to show for high school or university. And that's another point that we want to make. You must be true to your CV. What does that mean? Put in only information about things that you've already, activities you've already been involved in, achievements that you've managed to rack up. But what does that mean? You have to get involved, because in the recruiting process, nobody wants to see a CV with straight A results and nothing else. People do want to see that you are, because it goes to show that you're able to multitask when you're involved in lots of different activities and at the same time maintaining a reasonable academic performance. Okay. So we spoke about the content in your CV. The next point is probably the most important point for you as a law student. You will find when you start your career in law, you're going to expect to write in plain language. And your sentence construction is important. And people are going to harp on the importance of how you write. You might as well start showcasing this in your CV already. Start doing a bit of research. I don't know how much the law school teaches you on plain language writing, but you can Google it and you can start doing a lot of research on how to write well. And that goes to the next point as well. When we talk about cover letters, do they add value? We find sometimes that people write the same things over and over again. I'm a hardworking person, I'm a dedicated person, I pride myself in doing things in a certain way. We read that 1,000 times over. If you're going to write a cover letter, make sure it's one that is different and that it makes an impact. Generally, my advice to students is don't write a cover letter, just write a short introduction and tailor it to each firm you're applying to. The problem with cover letters sometimes is when you, let's say you're applying to Weber Wenzel, ENS Africa, Lawton's, a number of different firms, and sometimes you make the mistake of attaching the wrong CV and you write to the recruiters at Weber Wenzel and you say, I'm so excited to be submitting my application to Worksmans. So
that has happened. That has happened quite a few times.
Yeah.
So just pay attention to detail when you are submitting your application. You know, if you need to go back and check that you are attaching the right documents, then do that. Also, just check for spelling and so grammar. Just make sure that you haven't put down any spelling errors and so on, because your CV at the end of the day, when you go through a process, does go through partners at most of the law firms, and sometimes they do pick up on those things.
They actually really do.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to write well, don't include a cover letter.
Okay.
See you, Reshma.
Yes.
We have a few questions from the students. Do you want to take them now or do you want to address them a little later?
We're happy to take the questions.
Okay, great.
We're going to work through them fairly quickly.
I can. Mlungisi is asking, is it compulsory to put a picture?
No, not at all, Mlungisi. But it's just nice to see the person there if it's a professional picture.
Great. Fatima's asked, if a student had initially began their first 2 years of university doing a different degree and then transferred to an LLB degree without completing the first degree, should they include the academic average of the initial degree in the application process as well?
So I think yes, and I think it's also important to make sure that you don't leave that off your CV. So the reason why I'm saying that is sometimes candidates do switch degrees and maybe start off with the engineering degree and then switch to LLB, for example. So make sure that you state that on your CV, include your academic average, and include your transcripts that you're submitting as well as part of your application. Don't leave that information out, because sometimes it just looks like a gap in your CV and you want to make sure that you give them a full picture of what you've been doing for that period of time.
Okay, great. Thank you. Refilwe asks, if you could please give tips for writing a CV for Backwork as an LLB student with no experience. Maybe you'll be able to talk to that a bit later. And then Anonymous asks, would including scanned documents such as certificates be beneficial, or will it be unnecessary for a CV?
In the early stages, I think it's unnecessary to include all your certificates. If you've got certificates of achievement, I think rather put them write that down on your CV. And then that goes to the previous question. Was it Refilwe's question? Those are the things you could fill your CV with. You know, what were your special achievements, things like that. So those are the things that go into filling your CV. And remember, I'm sorry, I'm dealing with the two questions at the same time. Refilwe, when you're a student, we know that you haven't had too much work experience, and you haven't had, you know, you don't have that much to put on your CV. So you could do a 2 to 3 page CV, but make sure you're a colorful person. Sign up for things at university, do different things. Think about the different things that you'd like to get involved in. So basically what I'm saying is if you don't have things to put on that CV, find things not just to put on your CV, but to make yourself more interesting to recruiters.
Right.
Yeah,
Thank you, Reshma. Okay, so I think, yeah, they're coming in quite fast and furious. So there's two, some students writing in the Q&A box and others I think are writing in the chat. I'm just going to encourage students, please try and stick to the Q&A because I'm trying to switch and then I can filter for Reshma and Sayuri as to the common questions. So the one question asked by Anonymous again is, when is the right time to apply for articles? And then there's another one from Nandis was saying, when can I start doing Backwork? I don't know if the two might be interrelated. Thank you.
Okay, I think maybe we should consider maybe doing another session just on when to apply, etc., and you know how to apply. But generally, firms will advertise on their websites when you must start applying. But it is the year we think, and we are recreating everything. We're very excited about what we're doing here for Weber Wenzel at the moment. But generally, we think that the right time to apply is in your pre-penultimate year. So not your penultimate year, that is too late. So look at the year in which you expect to commence articles. Is it 2025, 2026, whatever it may be? And you apply in your pre-penultimate year of study.
Great. Okay. Andrew has asked a question. Should you put your work experience, even if it's not related to your law degree or the job you're actually applying for?
Yes, so Andrew, yes, please don't leave out any work experience that you would have gained. Please include everything that you've done, be it like social
marketing.
Yeah.
Anything,
any work experience counts because we
even
are then,
volunteer work.
Yeah. Because we are then able to see what you are actually involved in addition to studying and how you are able to balance those two. So you may think it's not legal related, but for us, it's actually something that we do look at.
And Andrew, that goes to what to share, the next point that we make, what to share. I mean, those are the kinds of things that are very important to share. As Yuri has said, what have you been involved in? What shouldn't you share? You know, and this for me is it's a personal preference, so you should maybe think about it. But for me, when I see on the CV, when people put their hobbies in, right? So everyone has hobbies. People like doing different things. And if it's interesting, put it in there. But the one that I keep coming across is spending time with friends and family. You know, for me, if that's something you might mention in an interview, but saying we all or I'm thinking most of us like to spend time with friends and family. That doesn't necessarily qualify as something that's, you know, if somebody asks you what do you do in your spare time in an interview, you could say that. But to put that on the CV, it's like, you know, it's neither here nor there. Can we move on to the next slide? Are we moving on to the next slide? Are you comfortable with that, Jacinta?
Yes, please, because I think what it'll do, it'll give me a chance also to filter some of the questions.
Okay. No problem. Okay. We wanted to show you a little bit, and we're not going to go through the entire video because it's going to take too much time, and we seem to have a lot of questions. So we're just going to give you a brief introduction to what a good interview and a bad interview looks like. We'll start with You'll figure it out.
Why have I had so many jobs? I get bored easily. I'm really not a morning person. You're not? No. Okay.
So tell me, why do you want this job? Why do I want this job?
What do you consider your greatest strength?
My greatest strength is chilling with the coworkers. You know,
I don't want to do anything boring.
Right, now we're going to show you a little bit of the opposite of that.
Hi, Chris Sauer.
Hi, Kate Johnson. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Kate.
Chris, please tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm currently finishing my Master's of Education program at Lake Erie College and working on transitioning from a Northeastern Ohioaner to being a member of the Jacksonville area community.
Why the move?
Well, my wife's job is moving down south, and I'm coming along with her.
It's very noble and admirable about you at the same time. How did you hear about the position open with our company here at REI?
Well, when I thought about the opportunity of changing locations and moving from one physical location to another, I thought about making a career move as well. And I was starting with my main interests and passions. And I love being outside. I love doing outdoor activities. And I love working with people. And I thought if I could use my experience as a teacher, helping people, and my interest in the outdoors together, that would be a good place to start a new career. And when I was looking online, I found REI as well.
Okay, so guys, those were snippets of a good interview and a bad interview. In the bad interview, you can clearly see the lack of preparation in coming to the interview, and also expressing a lot of, well, speaking in a very unfiltered way. And so now we're going, whereas in the good interview, you saw he took the opportunity to sort of say more than just answer the question. Especially when he said, you know, I saw the opportunity to combine the two. It shows a little bit of forethought and planning. We're going to take you through some interview tips. Okay.
So arriving on time, and I know things have changed when it comes to a virtual interview versus face-to-face, and a lot of the firms are doing virtual interviews. But it's really important that, especially with a virtual interview, you also check that you've got a secure internet access. You know, if you don't necessarily have internet access, then say to the law firms, we, for example, say to the students, you know, come into our offices if they're close enough, and you can sit in a boardroom. So just, you know, be aware of that. Make sure that you are, again, it's a first impression. Don't be late for your first interview with the firm or your first meeting with the partners of the firm.
Yep. Guys, when we say why must you arrive on time, there you think about the planning that goes on behind. There are 3 partners, and that usually 2 to 3 partners that do conduct the interview. So in a law firm, you know, time is billable time. So you've got 3 partners sitting there at however much per hour. I'm not sure, no, I don't know if I can share the rates, but it's expensive for 3 partners to be sitting and interviewing you. So when you're late for the interview, this has impact on billable time. Secondly, it has impact on a number of other people who might have to be interviewed immediately after you. So it's got the spiral effect, and what ends up happening is that people are just frustrated with you. If for any reason you're unable to make your interview time, please convey that information to the recruiters in as early as possible, you know, in advance. Okay. Dress smartly. Please, please, please make sure that you dress formally for an interview. Even if it's an online interview, make sure that you are dressed formally and make sure that your space around you is professional, formal, neat
Yeah.
for that period of time.
Dealing with NARS, I know it's difficult because of the position that you are in. You know, I think a lot of the people that you'll come across will say to you, you know, take a minute to calm down, or if you feel that you are feeling nervous, then, you know, say to them, I'm feeling a bit nervous, you know, and they'll immediately try and make you feel more comfortable. So don't go in there feeling that you also need to present in a certain way, because sometimes you then, you know, the way it affects the way you interview. Rather say to them, look, I'm feeling a bit nervous. You know, please can I have a minute either to calm down, or they'll try and help you deal with your nerves.
Yeah. Watch videos, guys. Watch a lot of videos, but don't copy. Don't sit there and attempt to copy the person you watched in the video. You must do you, right? But learn tips from them. So just watch video after video after video, and you'll pick up. And we've put a link there to a very good YouTube video, which we watched a little bit earlier. So watch these videos, and there's so many of them over and over, but don't attempt to copy. We were debating between ourselves whether you must sit in front of the mirror and practice, and Sadie says it's got to be the most awful thing in the world. But, you know, prepare in a way that makes you comfortable. Okay.
Knowing your firm, I think this is one of the things that I've kind of seen recently in candidates when they're coming through for interviews, is they don't, you know, you're applying to any of the big 5 law firms, but take a keen interest in each one of them in terms of, it's so easy to follow their LinkedIn profiles, their social media, you know what matters they sort of working on. Those type of things, when you do go for an interview, it's easy to converse with the other person on the other side of the table. So if you've read up on a matter that particularly interested you, it just becomes more of an engaging experience for both sides.
And whatever you do, don't give the wrong information, because, so for example, Weber Wenzel has a 3 rotation structure, and you don't want to be sitting across from the interview and they say, what attracts you to Weber Wenzel? And you must think about those kind of questions. But you don't want to be sitting across and say, you know, I'm so excited that you have 4 rotations and I'll experience 4 different areas of law. The information for different firms are on their websites. You need to talk to the firm that you are interviewing with. The next point, guys, small talk. This is a very hard one, both online and in person. Like, should I, shouldn't I? We're sitting here, one of the partners is running late, so they can run late, but you can't, right? So they're running 5 minutes late, and there's just you and the other person there, and it's the most awkward moment ever. You take your cue from the interviewer. If the interviewer, you know, you smile and you be ready to talk if they want to talk. You greet them and you just wait. If they want to talk, they will talk. Otherwise, they might continue with work. But I know it's awkward, but know that for every awkward moment you're sitting in there, you know, you're doing that awkward moment, there's 100 other people doing it. So those will happen over and over again. You just get used to being ready for when they talk to you.
When it comes to the end of the interview, I think always be prepared with at least 1 or 2 questions, you know, that show that you are genuinely interested in the firm that you're applying to. So I think that will also come from the research that you do about the firm before you go for the interview. But just, I think it always leaves a good impression when you ask something about the firm or something, you know, maybe specific, because it shows that you're really interested in what the type of work that the firm is doing, or particularly interested in a practice area, for example. So, you know, always thank the panel that has interviewed you, and they'll usually ask, do you have any questions? And that's your opportunity to also get to know a little bit more about either the people interviewing you or the firm itself.
But don't be so rehearsed that you've prepared a question and somewhere in your discussions that question was answered. And now just because you prepared the question and your nerves are finishing you, you feel you have to ask that question. You don't have to ask that question. And I think just in closing the interview, and we do mention it on the next slide, but I'm going to deal with it now. Be mindful of the time. If half an hour has been given to you, and you've come to the end of the half an hour and you've got 10 questions, you might want to cut that down, or you might want to say to them, I see my time is up. I do have 1 or 2 questions. Would that be okay? But then don't ask all 10 questions. Ask maybe 1 question and let them tell, because like I said, there might be the second person in the waiting room waiting to do their interview. So be very mindful and let them know that you are aware of how much time you have. They will actually appreciate you for that. Okay, answering situation-based questions. So guys, if you are in an interview, you might have the partners of a firm interviewing you together with the HR people in the firm. Sometimes the HR people, it doesn't often happen that the partners ask you this unless they've been given an interview guide by the HR people, which, well, actually that does happen sometimes. But when they ask you situation-based questions and they say, tell me, sorry, the point there might be misplaced, but if they say, tell me about a time when you were in a difficult situation, how did you resolve that? When they say, tell me about a time, they don't want to know how you're going to resolve that hypothetically. Well, I would do. They want you to think back to an example, and in your interview preparation, it will be very useful to you to go back and look at behavioral-based questions. The ones that come up often, Sayuri, are?
Tell me about a time where you had to resolve conflict.
Yes.
Tell me about a time where you worked with difficult people, or where you took a leadership role.
Where you missed a deadline, where you had a problem. So, working with a team. So those are the, go back, research behavioral-based questions, because those kind of questions will come up in interviews. The next point, and guys, sorry, we are rushing through a bit because we want to get to questions as well. Tell me about yourself. They're all going to start with saying, tell me about yourself. When you talk about yourself, look at this video, the link that's included here. You don't want to include unnecessary information. You want to talk about yourself. You want to say who you are, where you grew up. And again, you don't have that much work experience to talk about. But you want to include a little bit about your personal self as well as your professional self. You don't want to go off on a tangent talking about your personal life. So for example, if you ask me who I am, I will say my name is Reshma Daya. I worked at so-and-so law firm previously. In my role, I was responsible for managing this. Okay. But if I say I'm married, I have a son and a daughter, I can't share that much information. But if you say, who are you? And I say, my name is Reshma Daya. I used to work in one of the following, in this law firm previously, or I used to work at Weber Wenzel, or I currently work at Weber Wenzel. I have 2 children. I have a son who's 11 years old, and my daughter's 16 years old. My daughter's she's going into matric next year, and she's thinking about doing law, and she's very smart, and she does well in her exams. Guys, I'm going off on a tangent. Nobody cares. So be careful. Prepare for what you share, because that's the first question that is going to come up in every interview. Practice, practice, practice till you're comfortable with a very nice introduction to yourself. I think deal with why law and career goals. Everybody asks that.
And I think sometimes you'll come across that question in your actual application. So why did you decide to study law? Why do you want to go into a practicing or corporate law firm? Think about what answer you prepare for that question for an interview, and before putting down an answer in application, really think about it. And it's fine if you say things like you were inspired by, a family member or whatever it is. but link it back to yourself and why you are passionate about studying the law and passionate about actually practicing it, and where you see yourself in a couple of years. We don't expect you to necessarily say, because you're just starting off your career, but we want to be able to see that you are actually keen and interested in this as a long-term prospect.
Yeah, and also link it back to the firm you're applying to. So you can't apply to, for example, a firm like Weber Wenzel and say, because my absolute passion is criminal law, for example. You have to link it back to the practice areas that particular firm offers. You can say I was inspired by a criminal lawyer, but you can't say, that's what I want to do, but then you must apply to a firm that specializes in criminal law. So that's quite important. Some people say, I'm very interested in your pro bono practice, and which is absolutely fine to say that, but remember, broadly, what does the firm do besides pro bono? If you're going to be expected to rotate to commercial disputes teams, you're going to rotate into commercial practices. So think about that. Again, goes to your research. What does that firm do? You want to match yourself to what they do. You want to give yourself the best possible chance of being that match that they're looking for. Dealing with salary, we laughed a little bit earlier because Sayuri got an email from somebody saying, well, I have a BCom degree before my law degree, so can I negotiate my salary? No, as a person coming into articles.
Please don't try and negotiate salary with any of the law firms. They are pretty standard with what they offer the candidate attorneys for articles.
Don't even bring it up.
Yeah.
Okay. Couple of things we wanted to make you aware of in virtual interviews is your body language. Your voice projection is important in an interview. We hope you can hear us now. They say leaning in shows interest, but you can look up a whole lot of stuff on, how behavioral cues. We spoke about when you're waiting for others and that awkward moment. Little things you need to be aware of. If you're working with paper makes a noise when your audio is on, and it can be quite irritating. Typing makes a noise. Beware of noises in the background. Beware of little things like fidgeting. So, you mentioned somebody.
So I think when you're in an interview, sometimes, people tend to like swivel on their chair or, fidget. Now that everyone's kind of wearing masks face to face, I understand sometimes you're nervous, but just be conscious of it because it comes across to the person who's interviewing. So, if you like fidgeting with the pen or something like that, it's just something to be conscious of. Your body language is important, and if you're doing something like another thing is please put your cell phones on mute and do not disturb, because
you said that because my phone was vibrating now.
It can distract you and throw you off when you're in the interview. And yeah, you don't want that to happen.
And especially the mask thing, guys. You keep rather put your mask on before, and please observe COVID protocols, because it's essential that you do the right thing when you go into your interview. Now, you don't have to put a mask on, obviously, in an virtual interview. But if you're going in person, make sure your mask is on. Make sure you fit your mask beforehand, because I know they can become a bit irritating. But you know what? If they do bug you a little bit during the interview, so what? If people can overlook that. The same as when you're nervous. People can, if you show strengths in everything else, they can overcome your nervousness very easily. We say match energy levels, but I don't know to what extent. If you have a really, really quiet interviewer, you don't want to be super, super bubbly, but at the same time, you don't want the too quiet to speak. You don't have, you do you, but in reasonable sort of amounts. Okay, should we do some questions?
Yeah.
Yes, great. Thanks so much, Reshma. We've got quite a list, so I'm just trying to see. There's some that are outstanding from the CV component. So can I go through those quickly?
Yeah,
Yes, sure.
Okay, great. All right, so Anonymous asks, if a student has an average of 60%, what is the likelihood of them being employed?
If you've got an average of 60%, you probably are we're going to be quite transparent. You're going to be probably on the lower end of the results comparatively to what your peers are getting. So what must you do? You must make sure you've got other stuff on your CV. You must make sure you've been involved in things. You must make sure you've got a full CV to account for why you've got 60% compared to your colleague who might have 80%.
Yeah.
Great. Anonymous asks, can we include high school achievements such as academic or cultural achievements or just university achievements?
So yeah, you can include high school, but again, just remember the order that you're including it on your CV. We obviously want to see your tertiary education is most relevant to us right now. So we want to see that first, and together with your participation at a tertiary level, followed by your high school achievements.
And lots of people do have very nice high school achievements to include like colors and things like that. So
Yeah.
please do add that, but make sure it's not overwhelmingly high school and then you've got 0 in university. Okay.
Right. Thank you. Okay, so I don't know if this relates to the previous question, but maybe you could feed into it. How do you justify bad marks in an interview?
So, I mean, when we do look at a candidate's application, we obviously selected you if you make it to an interview stage for a reason. And when we look at someone's CV and we're able to see, you know, this person has done quite well, and then there were a couple of marks or a year where it may have not been particularly well, you'll probably get to the interview and the person interviewing you will ask you, you know, what happened, and be honest about what happened in that year. Don't try and, you know, create a story, because it's very easy to pick up when someone is lying. Just be honest about whether you've had some health issues or you just had some personal issues. Just be honest about what happened. They're not gonna like try and ask for details, but I think the most important thing is to be honest and genuine about that.
It goes to the same thing as, you know, I started another degree and then I discontinued. That was the question that came up earlier. We know that you're a human being.
Yeah.
You know, you may not have loved what you liked, or you may have struggled settling into first year, or you may have just found this freedom after matric, and you were a bit too lenient on yourself. But be honest about things like that. We know that you are a human being, but just be able to say that, you know, I've picked up since, and I've improved my results, and yeah, just be a human being. There was a point I wanted to make and I forget, but I'll come back to it when I remember.
Right. Thank you, Reshma. Menalisi asks, can I please find out what happens if I do not have any vacation work at a law firm, but experience in other fields in 4th year of LLB? What would be the best course of action here? And I think if I could just add, I think there are quite a few questions that are coming through that students are asking, or at least a concern that they might not have been able to secure VAC work during the pandemic. And if this continues, does this really put them at a disadvantage? Thank you.
Hey, no, so I know that there seems to be a bit of a misconception amongst the students that you need to do VAC work, or you need to have VAC work on your CV in order to apply for articles. That's not the case. Remember, VAC work also works differently at the different law firms. Sometimes the VAC program is it's a step in the selection process, and sometimes it's a separate application from articles. So just be aware of that as well. But there isn't if you haven't done VAC work and you have work experience that you can add onto your CV, that's fine. It isn't a requirement for you to have VAC work on your CV in order to apply for articles.
And treat your other work as importantly as you do your VAC work. So it is important and it is relevant.
Right. Okay, so Nelise will ask, what are the key things you see in a CV that makes a candidate advance to interviews? And then, of course, there's another question similar to this that came out in the chat group. Any tips on how I can make my application stand out from others? Thank you.
Difficult one, very broad.
So I think, you know, if you go to the career fairs and interact with the law firms, you're gonna hear the same or similar message. We look for someone who's well-rounded and well-balanced. So that means, which is why we're also encouraging you to get involved if you're not involved on things on campus, or, you know, start working, doing something other than just studying. Because when you start your articles, especially in your first year, you're juggling so many different things, including transitioning into work. You've got your compulsory PLT training, you're preparing for board exams. If you start building your softer skills by getting involved right now, in addition to just studying, so you take on a leadership role, for example, you're able to learn how to manage your responsibilities in that role, together with balancing your studies. And those skills that you can't learn through a module, or you can't learn in a lecture, those type of things no one's going to teach you. You have to learn through experience. So the only thing I would say is, when we say well balanced, we do actually mean it. I would rather take someone or consider someone who's got a 65% average, for example, or 70% average, who's got a lot on their CV in terms of other roles and positions of responsibility, than someone who's got a 90% but isn't involved in anything at all, because of the context that you're working in and because of the environment that you come into.
Yeah. And I would say that it's all parts that make a whole, right? So it's your results, it's how you structure your CV, it's how you write in your CV, it's the content of your CV, it's all things together that puts you forward in a positive light.
Yeah, and if you are going to get involved, I mean, we are telling you now to start thinking about those things. You know, get involved in something that actually interests you. Don't just get involved in because you want to add something onto your CV. You know, it's all about being genuine, like we've been saying. So find something that really interests you and take that on fully and wholeheartedly, if that makes sense. Because when you get to an interview, also they'll ask you about it, and you'll be able to engage a lot better if it's something that you're really interested in.
Guys, we're going to show you a little bit of a video on, you ask, what do law firms want? We don't have, Jacinta, are we good for time, or must we stop now?
It's 1:54. Let me just seek advice here from Hazel. Hazel, how are we doing for time?
Oh, Hazel's.
We have 6 minutes left.
6 minutes.
6 minutes. Okay. Thanks, Hazel. We're going to show you part of a video. We're just going to show you bits and pieces. We're just going to fast forward just for you to get a feel for what law firms want. And then we're going to share one final slide with you.
Find your fertile days.
Okay, sorry, that's an ad.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me. That's my resume.
Oh, great. We're looking for someone who has a lot of experience in this work.
I thought this was an entry-level position.
Yes, well, experienced entry level. Experience is sort of implied. We're looking for someone who's really a team player, but can also work independently as well. So it's really important that the person who fills this role is someone who has a lot of initiative, won't rock the boat, will shake things up, but takes a very cautious approach to making decisions. Is a real risk taker, but plays by the rules. We don't like to micromanage around here, but we do require hourly status updates. In fact, I just do it via video chat. I just keep it open. In fact, hey Steve, how are you?
Hey, how you doing?
All right, we're doing the interview right now. Just wanted to update you on that. Say hi to Steve.
Steve.
We're looking for someone who's confident, but not overly confident, innovative, but traditional, easy to work with.
Okay, guys, so do you see what law firms want? They want everything. they want the bread buttered on both sides. But when a law firm is interviewing you, they are looking for the following key things, and they test this in the behavioral questions that they ask you when they ask you about yourself, when they read your CV. Firstly, they want to see that you have a passion for the work that you want to do, and you must have that even for yourself, to keep yourself emotionally, mentally happy, and to keep yourself motivated. That's important. The second thing that they're looking for is they're looking for people who can connect with other people, and that's both your communication and building. They want to see at this stage your ability to build positive relationships. So remember this for the rest of your career. It is important to communicate well in your writing and in the way you speak. It comes with experience, but it's also very important to build positive relationships. Your peers at university are going to be your colleagues one day, they're going to be your clients one day, and I can't begin to tell you the importance of valuing those relationships. The next thing they want to see from you is your skills. They want to see that you have both legal skills. Now, we know coming out of university, you have knowledge, you don't necessarily have lots of skills, but they want to see the potential for building legal skills. And they also want to see that you have other skill sets, that you're able to coordinate, that you're able to multitask, that you're able to write well, that you're able to meet deadlines. So those are the kinds of things they're looking for. They're looking for ultimately people who are reliable. That if I give you something to do, even if it's small, are you going to do that work without me having to check on you? And the reliable part, and the skills part is what we deal with our candidate attorneys when they start articles at a firm, and those things come in time. But in some way or the other, they want to see when CUD tells you must be doing work and you must be getting yourself involved, whether it's back work or other work, you're involved in things. It's all about building those skills. And the last thing that law firms want, which you will never give them as a generation, we know, they want long-term commitment, right? But we all know, let's be realistic. Most of you fall into a newer generation where it's not going to be for the rest of your life, and that's okay. But you don't want to say that in the interview, well, I'm just coming here and I just want articles, and after that I'm moving on. There must be, again, put your filters on in how you share information, and at least for the foreseeable future, see yourself in the long term until you make different decisions.
Okay. I think, should we go through some questions?
I think we've probably got time for only one or two questions now.
Okay, great. So we still got quite a long list. So I think some of them really are around clarifying how the CV needs to really look. For example, students have asked, when we're talking about the headings on the CV, one student asked, what is the distinction between, or should there be a distinction between education and achievements? Should there be a column that indicates work experience, even if there isn't any work experience? And then another student has asked, specifically as to why they might not have received or at least advanced in the interview process or to the interview process if they achieved.
Okay, guys, in terms of the CV template,
70% overall.
Sorry, Jacinta, I think.
No, carry on. That was it.
In terms of how to structure your CV, what we showed you was one template example, as we don't take that as the given way to do a CV. As we've said, go onto Google, find different templates and find the one that works for you. And if there are no templates that work for you, get a feel, look at the look and feel of those kind of things. And maybe if you're quite good with your computer skills, do one for yourself. But that is certainly not the only way to structure your CV. You must structure your CV in a way that showcases your information the best. In terms of why you haven't progressed, there's a number of reasons. There's lots of applications that go to the different law firms. And I've seen people who've applied to 6, 7 law firms. Somebody once said, I applied, I sent literally over 100 CVs out, and eventually I did get articles. So don't lose heart. Just apply as widely as possible to as many firms as possible, and be as diligent about it as you can. Also, adhere to the timelines that are given by the law firms. Don't be one of those people. If some of you sitting here are in first year, don't think that you mustn't start researching the firms now. You must be proactive. You must be attending firm events. You must start building your relationships with the different firms, and you must keep an eye out for the application timelines. You will be disappointed when your application is rejected by, some of the firms, including us in some instances. Don't lose heart. Just keep applying. Some of you also have this in your hearts where you feel my marks are just not good enough, so I definitely can't apply. Well, give yourself that chance. You never know. You might get, you probably will get rejected by many firms, but you would never know if you didn't apply. And you never know when a firm, for example, might be looking for, they lost a candidate attorney at the last minute who was supposed to join the firm, and they're looking for people at the last minute, and they go back to their reserve lists and they look at candidates. But manage your career proactively, and don't lose heart when things don't work out for you.
Great. Have we got time for one more question, Reshma? I think this one might be. Okay, thank you. All right, so I've just tried to clump these together. The students are asking whether, one, are they allowed to bring notes into the interview process? 2, will there be, or do interviewers ask specific legal questions? For example, explain legal procedure. And I think this goes back to the same point that you highlighted earlier, because the student did notice that there was a candidate in the interview on the video carrying notes, is really as to whether bringing such items into the interview is acceptable. And then I think just the last one with regard to that is, if a student has achieved or does having a master's degree put them in a higher category of getting employed in this process. Thank you.
Okay, so I think firstly let me deal with the question around the master's qualification. So it doesn't necessarily put you in a better position. We do look at everyone obviously on a fairness and consistency based level. So we look at your LLB, be it postgrad or undergrad LLB marks when we are recruiting you for articles. If you do want to bring notes to an interview, there's nothing wrong with that. However, just again, remember when you are speaking to the interviewers about, during the interview and you're engaging, you're able to, if they've answered questions, obviously don't ask those questions again, but you can, there's nothing wrong with bringing notes to an interview.
Or maybe just make little notes on your copy of your CV that you bring into the interview. I would say at this stage, not all the directors are comfortable with putting notes on your phone yet. I know we've moved ahead in technology, but I still think, sometimes you might have different generations in the room, and you might find some people who feel a little bit uncomfortable with notes on your phone. So I would suggest you rather do paper notes.
Yeah. And when it comes to specific legal questions, look, no one's going to ask you to quote a textbook. No one's going to ask you to prepare for an interview by using a textbook. you won't get asked very specific legal questions. What they might do in an interview is, for example, ask you a simple question like, tell me about a matter or something that you've seen in the news recently, and they'll try and engage with you on that may relate to the law. So, which is why we say, reading is really important. Keeping up to date with the news and what's happening around you is really important, because it may not be directly, they may not ask you a direct question, but they'll ask you something linked to maybe how the law was applied in that situation and what your opinion about it was. So start thinking and reading those type of things.
And whatever you do, don't be caught off guard not knowing what's happening currently.
Yeah.
You must know what is happening. They'll say, so what did you think about what came out in the news this morning? And you are like sitting there like, no, I didn't watch the news this morning. You have to get into the habit of keeping updated, keeping yourself updated.
Okay,
I think that's our time.
Right.
Thank you very much,
so
Hazel. Jacinta, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. This was very informative, Reshma. Thank you, Sayuri. Thank you to Weber Wenzel for this session. I think the students have really gained a lot of information today, key information on writing their CV and preparing for that interview. And I think one of the things that came across very strongly that we appreciate is, while the process is not necessarily going to guarantee you success, you've given students strategies and tips in which would put them in a better position and something for them to be able to work towards. So we thank you for this time. I just want to remind the students again about Law Professions Day, where there were so many questions and we couldn't answer all these questions today. What I would like to suggest is, students, if you can, keep those questions, because then you'll have another opportunity to be able to direct those questions again over the 2-day sessions that we have for the Law Professions Day. But once again, thank you so much to Weber Wenzel for this informative session, and we appreciate your time in coming out to give this invaluable input to our students. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.